Kalispera. Laila
Kalispera,
Tov.
Julia. לערב טוב, ערב טוב.
I got not to do it again.
You simply say Kalispera, it's okay. So it's been some time, but we are here now, yes?
Yeah.
And we are in Exploring Reality 22. Today is the 4th of April, 2021. The 94th day of 2021. And we were speaking lately, yes, Julia, about intuition.
Yes.
When the ping pong is going on in your mind, how do we listen to it? The longer it takes for the answer to arrive, the less we know what it is answering.
It's true.
Plus, we don't always escape a repetitive program that brings the same answer again and again.
Yes.
That we read in a book or heard from our teachers or the TV or grandpa used to say, you know.
And let alone that if you have the right answer, you have a little person in your head saying, I know, but I don't want to do it.
Right, yes. You sometimes, you were saying sometimes you don't like the answer to your question. Or you get the answer, but sort of forget it and don't pay attention. Yeah. Now, the governing paradigm is that we measure ourselves against the result, usually. The sum in my paycheck, if I lost or gained 2 kilos, if I sold my artwork, if I passed the exam, and so on. We hardly pay attention to the process, to what and how we process. But consciousness expands from seeing the way of processing. And your commentary is more about that, about seeing the way we process, and I like it. And well done. I resonate with this introspection.
Thank you. It comes to the right moment.
Yes, it does. And I'll tell you, there are a few things to say about it, but let me start from the macro, okay? Because there are, sorry, there are a few events in the macro that can serve in a didactic manner to explain how we go on internally in our daily personal life. Let's take the incident with the Ever Given in the Suez Canal. Because the year 2021 starts and a main artery of commerce gets stuck and blocks the way. And there is a queue of hundreds of vessels with a lot of goods and merchandise from one side of the planet to the other, and nobody anticipated it. So when the event comes along, we are not ready for it. And although there were small tractors and heavy machinery that looked very little against the big ship, and there were other vessels pulling and pushing, the only salvation, the only resource that appeared to really make the change was not human, was not a human resource, but rather was from the moon, which is a satellite of Earth. It was only when humans synchronized and collaborated with the moon's effect, which is the tide, that they could remove that ship, that blockage. Anticipation is to do with receiving first the abstract resource and developing from it the tool to use when the challenge comes along. Therefore, it is it is good being always in some kind of learning program or training, learning new stuff. You never know when you will be called to use. But back to the global incident, the body has got, the human body has got these programs. This is what Dr. Rick Hammer was speaking about. There is a trauma and a ready-made response, what we call natural response of the body. Harari calls an organism an algorithm. This time we saw a ready-made natural program, not of the human body, rather of the planet's body or soma. The monthly tide. Once a month, the waters are coming up. This is the famous 28 days cycle, which says the circuitries too of the whole octave 8. And also in our personal life, there are cycles or what was termed once biorhythms, which are an existing piece of algorithm that knows how to do something, what is being called in computer programming a function. So if we lose track or sense of the voice of our original self, we need to know that the next thing is that an algorithm from a more abstract dimension will eventually release the blockage as long as we bring our local tractors and resources. It is all part of the fractal. We in our life can disconnect from the fractal to a certain extent by our thoughts and actions, but having installed the convergent logic in one's receptor allows one to access to new algorithms and new functions that weren't available before. The transportation of commercial goods around the globe was on our face, on the face of all countries to see for a whole week. Reality made it very clear. Now, what do you take from this incident to your own life? You see, how do you read it? Because in the past, this would have become a story about the sacred moon and the belief of people in the Holy Nile and the Holy Tide. But we are not there anymore. And the receptor needs to mature and scientifically read that part of reality. There are lots of parts of reality that we don't feel part of, and yet we are. The ever given, this was the name of the ship, is such. You can say, I have nothing to do with it, unless you are a business person or a sailor or connected somehow. And without anticipation, we are left only with a condition, an ever-given condition. But with anticipation, you have election. You have the possibility of election. In 7, there is election. In 4, there is decision. And in 1, there is condition. We don't have a mindset that includes all reality. So we go on in our life, we create minor theories, and then something happens outside our theory and we can't compute, and we leave it out, and we can leave, you know, a bulk of people out because they don't match our theory. And there is more than this, because the reading is in self-reference. In other words, one receptor can read it differently from the other. And reality needs all of these perspectives. What I saw in particular in the division in this incident is the division between continent 2, which is Africa, and continent 9, which is, from South Asia. The Earth, the continents, it's all part of the sun's unfolding. The whole Earth is how the sun gets projected. But this is another subject for another time. So there was a disconnection between continent 2 and continent 9, and surprise, because the division between 2 to 9, when you find the middle is between 5 and 6. And we spoke about 2021 starting an apparatus of 4 years, a whole solar year, numbered 506, which is the era of truth. And I won't go into it again because we spoke about it. So I see in these movements in the maturity of the sapiens processor to figure out what is trueness. But at the same time, I also feel it in my life. And I develop tools to read carefully, let's say, the media, and based my positions on logic that arises in my original self rather than in my linear identity with all of its bias, and rather than propaganda from outside. Now let's look at another incident, the volcanic activity in Iceland, which is 354.
Yeah.
And we spoke about 54, because 54 is Argentina.
Yes.
That sees the rules from above. It sees the model 4 from its logic 5. And it erupted, this volcanic activity, at the 19th of March 2021, which is the space that divides the year, the yearly cycle, the 365 days, into 78 in the positive and minus 287 in the negative, which makes it a very specific day in the year. From the one side, you have 78, and from the other, the circuitry of 87, which is an algorithm of the ionosphere to correct mistakes and prepare the updates. And tourists now go just to play volleyball, take a selfie, fry sausages with the volcano and celebrate. And you see that some receptors can only participate by celebrating, and some by research, and some by concern. Again, what does this tell you? Because it told me, listen, receptor 54. We see you 3, 5, 4. And you better start moving your ass from your laziness to correct what needs to be corrected, whatever that means. Otherwise, energy gets out just to build interesting landscape, because it's has got nothing to do. Now, what really brought in me a kind of illumination is hearing, as the traffic of the canal was getting started again, Biden's plan for massive, gigantic renovation of all the US infrastructure that is getting very old to match the needs of the future, all of its bridges, all of its roads, repairing everything for green energy. So you see, receptor 1, the slowest, is anticipating the future, using the challenge of the old condition and Corona and this and the other, new government, as an opportunity to invest for the next development to come. And this was very good news for me. This is how I read it. even if they don't approve the plan and the Republicans limit the program, it's in the field as an option. It was articulated. It is an indication for me, and very good news. And I will tell you a personal story. I swim once or twice a week, and my swimming suit is getting a bit old. It had a small stitch that got weakened. Now, in Corona time, I delayed because you have to try it on the swimming pool. Yes, so I couldn't get a new one. But in the meantime, if I don't fix the stitch, one day I will be swimming in the swimming pool, and you know what will happen. And there is a saying that says, a stitch in time saves 9. And see how thoughtful, because it is 9, yes? Now, when I see this, I get sensitized to the inner sounds and the inner feelings. And it's okay not to listen or forget or not to like, and just to take note that I heard it, I listened to it, I did not like it. This is already creating in yourself a 0. It is very important. There is a 0 now, which is empty space, and something can start to happen. If you have 0 cars, it means you have the notion of a car in yourself. One day, a car will appear. I'll give you an example from the political situation in Israel. And I could go on and on. Monarchies, what is happening to monarchies in the world? Well, many other examples. But let's take one from the political situation in Israel. The last 2 years, we had 4 elections, and there is no steady government. And this definitely shows in many different ways in the country, corruption and so on. And for a long time, I'm expecting a sort of game changer in relation to the Arab minority in Israel, to the Arab world in general, but especially to the Arab minority in Israel. I know them better. Because continuing to do the same thing again and again will lead to the same places and complain about the same things. And I wrote and spoke about it a lot, that this distortion needs to toss back. Remember, we spoke about distortion and tossing back. I won't do this again. Now, in the political map today, there is a situation, not unplanned, where both big parties need the Arab voice in the game.
Right.
Now, it doesn't matter if the government doesn't form up eventually, or the Arabs don't take part in the government eventually. This is a situation that forces everyone in the ecosystem to move from their usual self and mature, because they need to enlarge their perspective. They need to check, like Biden does, you know, the old infrastructure, and understand that this old infrastructure needs to be maintained more and more and more, and doesn't serve the future needs.
Yeah.
Now, as mentioned before with the numbers, first is observation rather than interpretation. If and when we have an intensive course on that, it can speed up your reading. But yes, we were speaking about the possibility of an intensive course.
And it is a toolkit.
Yes,
Very
yes.
necessary.
Yeah.
At least for me right now. Yeah.
But even just, you know, just the fact that you follow your frequency and the days of your nocturnal derivation, and like Alejandra said once, if you took the wrong bus, you notice it, you simply go down and take another. So that's well, I will end with another bit that might throw light on this. There is the cycle of stupid and bright. You don't get bright from being bright. You get to know something new from not knowing. If you have a stupid day, you know your circuitries or past attachments are withering. This is when functionality decreases. And you know the next actualization has got free nerve ends to connect to. This is when connectivity increases. And what you can expect from that is new functionality. So the next day, there is a new discovery in your life, in your going on. And I hope this helps.
Absolutely. Edith, it came to the right moment.
I'm happy for that. Somehow it's always precise.
Synchronized.
Yeah.
Always in a good time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
And now I can say not only Erev Tov, but also Laila Tov.
Laila Tov, Kali Nichta.
Kali Nichta.
Afcharistopoli.
תודה רבה.
See you next time. Bye bye.